Perfect. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining. This session is all about your role as a strategic advisor. We have three distinguished gentlemen joining me. I appreciate these guys tremendously, and feel very grateful and honored to have them on this panel. Rick, Nir, and Victor. Rick joining us from California, Nir based in Israel, and Victor in the Netherlands, and I'm based in Panama City, Panama. Today we're going to be talking a lot about, so how the strategy tools and the community and the network really empower you as the strategic advisor. And each one of us have a different background, and I'm going to ask Rick, Nir, and Victor to give a slight, a very short 2-minute background on what is it that you do and how do you leverage strategy tools in your, day-to-day activities, and how has it helped you propel your career? So, 3 very, very short answers. Thank you. Let's start with you, Rick.
Sure. Hi. Greetings again. It was nice to host the FELAC startup people during the earlier panel. So by way of background, for those that don't know me, born and raised in Silicon Valley, trained as an engineer, never really did that. My professional career was in marketing in the semiconductor industry. So I had 3 individual startup companies from scratch, product, profitability, IPO, Fortune 500 status, exit 3 times, $12 billion collectively. That was fun, corporate career. Left that, decided to actually be a consultant for a while. One of the jobs I took was with the Canadian government. I'm not Canadian, but I was able to be that guy that built bridges between Canada, which is US's largest trading partner, and Silicon Valley in 2008 to 2011. So sort of restarted the tech industry in Canada, partially responsible anyway, a little bit. And from that, I've spanned out to a career where I leverage all of that background and get to do kind of what I want when I want, which is super fun. And so hence strategy tools. This platform has got so much going for it. I mean, Chris and the team are developing so many interesting tools and things and opportunities for myself and others to engage with ecosystems around the world and really help out. So giving back. I also teach at Berkeley and Northeastern and other places. So at this stage of my career, giving back, strategy tools is a big part of that.
Awesome. Thank you, Rick. Nir.
So hi again, everyone. As said before, I work primarily with startups and investments, but I must say, well, I'm coming from a consultancy background, more than 18 years, mostly for corporates and brands in digital and marketing environments. But in the last few years, I'm mostly focused on startups, both startups and scale-ups. And I would say that from my point of view, there is after having engaged with hundreds, I think, of founders, there's a major gap with things that are beyond domain expertise. And if you think it thoroughly enough, and this thing I learned here throughout, the different mindsets that strategy to really, really good at, is that I used to be the knowledgeable advisor, the one that comes in, pour in the information for the corporates, external information, benchmarks, that kind of things, and they expect me to do so. And the fun thing, or that really was kind of pushed forward with strategy tools, is me having the ability to come in and ask the right questions. And this is what I do mostly with early stage startups. I let them shine in their own domain, but through the mind shift, I kind of, I hope, create value. And I believe that the combination with the understanding of digital in general, digital marketing, digital transformation, which I did beforehand, so go-to-market strategies, along with fundraising and investment readiness, that creates something there that find a decent niche, I would say, in my system at least. Yeah.
And obviously Israel being considered startup nation, I mean, you are exposed to probably where a lot, you and Rick as example, Rick in Silicon Valley, you in Israel, really are considered, kind of the leading ecosystems around startup entrepreneurship, funding, etc. It's really the sweet spot where strategy tools, in my opinion, excels quite a bit. And having these tools to kind of frame it is definitely valuable. If we go to Victor, Victor, obviously in the Netherlands, also considered a very innovative country, you are now seeing a lot of shifts happening in various areas. You're particularly very much involved with the healthcare sector, Health Valley. You and I, we talked about this.
Yeah.
Can you give us, first of all, a little bit of your background? How did you get involved with Health Valley? And now I understand you're now in the semiconductor industry as well.
Yeah.
So
I have my own shift. Yeah. Really quickly, did political science and American studies, did nothing with it, Rick. Went into IT. Went into consultancy, project management, big consultancy companies, large national corporates. Then I switched to healthcare and worked 8 years as a strategic advisor in a hospital. And from there, I gradually shifted to the network innovation that was Health Valley here in the Netherlands, in Nijmegen, close to the hospital where I was working. And from there, I went into the area of advising on innovation projects, and I did a lot of things with design thinking. And then all of a sudden, somebody from the University of Applied Sciences said to me, if you like that, you might like also strategy tools. I came across, have a look into it. And that was November 2019. And then I did all the courses, the global coaching, and then I did the master training in 2020. So ever since that, I worked with the strategy tool set, but primarily with the focus within the cluster environment and the innovation network. So the regional development policies here in eastern part of the Netherlands, that's what I'm doing. And that ventures out a little bit into the startups, because we have accelerator programs and they grow into scale-ups or into small and medium enterprises, et cetera. And from Health Valley, the innovation campus that I'm at, Health Valley, is there for the healthcare innovation network. And I literally went over to the neighbors that have a network on the semiconductor high-tech industry. So as of April, I'm an independent consultant within that new network. So that's what I'm doing.
Excellent. So for the audience, and I'll give my background to complement Rick, Nir, and Victor. So like I said before, I've worked for almost 25 years in the consulting industry, in strategy, innovation, and advisory. Had multiple opportunities to advise in different sectors, both in public and in private sector. And, when COVID hit and 2021, 2022, I really started to kind of refire my career. I did not expect me to retire just like most partners do at firms like KPMG. And I said, well, there's much more to it. And like Rick, you want to start giving back. And I started to work with some of the accelerators here in Panama, where I dedicated part of my time to just coach some of the startups. Now, there's a big difference when you have mature markets like the US, like Israel, like the Netherlands, and you talk to, and you consider emerging markets such as Panama or Central America or Latin America in general. And I think what I've noticed, and that there was a need to kind of bridge the gap between corporate on one hand, so corporate transformation, innovation, etc., creating that entrepreneurial spirit within businesses. Now, on the other hand, having the entrepreneurs understand how to engage with corporate, and that is really a sweet spot that I've identified and said, you know what, I think that I can have an impact and maybe inspire some of these entrepreneurs and and corporate strategy officers and transformation officers to really think differently about strategy, to think differently about around innovation. I think I'm passionate about learning. I'm obsessed with mastering all these tools. And when I got exposed to strategy tools, I really found something where you could continue to build upon, add, and use in a day-to-day environment. And like you've seen, all four of us are kind of independent consultants. We compete against the biggest companies in the world, the biggest brands in the world. And therefore, you have to understand that dynamic is not about who has the biggest, numbers of people, or who has the biggest number of client references. It's really about setting the right context and engaging in the right way. So with that said, the context. Let's talk a bit about the context. Rick, you are in probably the hotbed of investment, of venture, of VCs and startup entrepreneurship, etc. at Silicon Valley. There's a lot of changes happening. We have seen numerous unicorns losing value almost overnight, where they were the darlings of the VC community, of the press, and all of a sudden they're basically out of business. How is that changing the dynamics of the investment, the VC, the startups in your part of the world?
This is all good news. It's yet another cycle that we go through every eight to 10 years, typically. And so two things. First off, for those of you who are familiar with the Gartner hype cycle, everything here follows the Gartner hype cycle. You get stuff that shows up at the top of the thing and everybody's super excited. And then we go through the trough of disillusionment and everybody thinks we're dying. Oh, it's so sad. And it's amplified when there's economic cycles going on a global basis. Sometimes we cause it, sometimes it's caused elsewhere, but it's just one of those. So what happens dynamically is that there are layoffs at the larger companies. The larger companies have sucked up a lot of the talent here, and then the talent comes in from everywhere else in the world. So it's the Metas and the Googles and every the large corporations that take people and they're paying them $300,000 a year for admin responsibilities and low-level programmers. Layoffs are good. Goodbye. They scatter. A lot of people leave, which is good. So traffic is better, and then a lot of people do startups. And so that's where the talent comes in. And that's where the next generation, the next pool of things happen. That's why this innovation ecosystem reinvents itself on a continuous basis. So, I mean, everybody speculates that AI is going to be the next wave. In part, that's true, but I don't even know what it's going to be, but it'll be pretty cool. And we'll see the results of that in the next 3 to 5 years.
It's very interesting, the massive layoff that we're seeing at the tech companies, and it's all across the board, right? It's not just the entry level, it's all across the board. So I think a lot of the new entrepreneurs, the new founders will be people that has had corporate experience working at big tech companies. And that, in my opinion, I agree with you, will accelerate the adoption of exponential technologies, emerging technologies within the startup business, even more so. But now with a much more of a pedigree of companies that have been successful in their own right.
Yeah, that's really always happened. The average age of a startup founder is 37. So you don't read TechCrunch, it gives you a distorted view of the world. Take a look at actually what's going on. So yeah, usually it's people with pedigrees that have been through, and in some cases, it's people that have come in from other countries that have been sponsored on an H-1B visa that have to actually work for a corporation for 5 years, and then they're released from that after the 5th year, and that's when a lot of people do startups. And then it's exacerbated by economic cycles.
Sure. And with that said, Nir, you've worked a lot with accelerators, programs to get startups to become investors ready. Can you talk about some specific examples, how you leverage strategy tools and the network and all the people and the knowledge we have within the network to kind of help you as an advisor to get startups to become investor ready?
Yeah, so maybe first it's better to kind of define maybe what is investor readiness, just a short definition, and that's basically the process of which you as a founder prepare yourself towards the fundraising process of reaching out to investors, getting their funds, etc. And as said before, what I find is that when you take a founder outside of his domain expertise, most of them, not all of them, right? But at least from my experience, it's about 90% of the people that I work with or meet with, founders, they don't know how to talk to investors and what really interests the investors, and talking financials rather than technology, and lots of, again, bias towards tech and expertise rather than business-wise and really investment readiness. So this is it, and the service is to get them prepared. And the beauty with strategy tools is that we have multiple series, whether these are the startup series or scale-up series, accelerators. I also find very valuable the new VC fund manager series of tools that if a founder understands that you have a deep dive opportunity with the founders to understand how a VC really works on the back end, that really help them kind of, it pulls some triggers. It kind of, create more understanding of when they approach to a specific investors or in general to VCs investors. So absolutely, this process requires, I would say, a hell of a analytical work. I believe in it. Work like mapping the landscape, mapping investors, potential investors, doing a top list out of it. So let's throw numbers to the air, map out 1,000 potential investors, list them to a top 100, top 30, top 20. You have to do that in order to be able to construct a decent investment process, fundraising process, understanding the competition thoroughly enough, segmenting, lots of things that founders with their intuition don't go into because it's too much work. And by coming as an advisor, as a consultant, someone that comes in and help them do that, not necessarily the hard work, okay, but just outlining them what they should do, urge them to do that, that creates a lot of value that they don't know of. Yeah. Now, it's not a short-term value, it's a long-term value. I mean, they will see the long-term value ahead. Going to take them time to see that. Only after they kind of meet and see, and at the end during the meeting they have clear answers in a fraction of a second because they prepared for that, and that's create a different dynamic within the meeting, etc., etc. And that's the work, and it's a muscle that good founders should do by themselves over and over and over again throughout the different fundraising stages. So pre-seed, seed, A, B, C, etc. They need to hold that to experience and work on this muscle. Yep. And just to give you examples of how I implement this, so many different types. I work directly with 5 startups. Let's take 2022. 2022, I worked there. One thing is I work with 5 startups. 3 of them were on ongoing basis, so kind of a retainer, and 2 were fixed price program, 5 weeks, things like that. Okay. The second thing was the Catapult, which is an accelerator in the Nordic with strategy tools. It's called the investor readiness module. So we take a whole month, okay, out of the 3-month accelerator program that is called investor readiness. 8 sessions of 3 hours plus simulation. It's a combined delivery. Okay, another different type of delivery. Mentorship in 2 other accelerators in Israel. So Techstars, the global one in Israel, and another leading one called 365X, Microsoft backed. I'm doing a one-on-one with a few of their startups. think I did more than 5 scale-up simulations, different ones. And one other thing, I'm a board member in a company called Hake, and part of the capital working group, meaning their ability to fundraise in general, reaching out to investors, etc., all the preparedness, and that I did as a board member. So this is another tool in my toolkit that I could utilize. And again, everything is with strategy tools, methodologies in general.
Sure, sure. And that shows a great example of how you could really leverage the tools, the platforms, and all the guidebooks in different roles, right? Within the entire ecosystem. And you gave some great examples there as a mentor, as a facilitator, as a coach, as a board member. And these are, I think, very welcome experiences that you're sharing. So thanks for that, Nir. Victor, let's go to Holland, and better yet, the Netherlands. You're no longer called Holland. You're the Netherlands now. Healthcare is changing. We have seen this. The COVID pandemic really showed how bad things are. And you're now in this role where you are creating an ecosystem where you're bringing in massive transformation, massive new ways of doing things, new business models within I would say, one of the leading healthcare countries in the world, right? Oftentimes the Netherlands is viewed as an example to follow. However, you are in the midst of a massive transformation, and it's really a privilege to be in a position like you have, where you're really trying to change and facilitating the change. I know it's not just you have an entire team, but can you talk a bit about how that experience has been, what you've accomplished so far, and how you've done it?
I briefly want to go back a little bit on what Rick said on how that innovation cycle works out, and also works out in ecosystems or in cluster networks, what I'm working on. So if you were to say, okay, what's the current status now within networking or ecosystem development, I would have to say that there's kind of a definition crisis. Maybe it has always been there, but over the last year, I work in 2 major ecosystem projects, one in the MENA countries and one across Europe on healthcare ecosystems and developing and comparing those different healthcare ecosystems. So what I found really helpful with the strategy tool set is to help align that definition problem, because first of all, it starts where people don't really have a sense of what the ecosystem is, so they all think they have that definition ready. And obviously you can work from the biology point of view, or you can use from the entrepreneurial side of view. But first you have to find out, okay, where is the alignment in the whole group within the room, and from there you can literally frame it and say, okay, the border of our ecosystem that we are talking about now is this and this and this. And then if you have agreement on that, then you can start working on the challenges that come across. So the definition of ecosystem, it's a kind of a hype. It's on the top. Everybody's talking about it. I even saw a recent article here in the Netherlands that now all municipalities are talking again about innovation districts. So that's the new hype word, the new buzzword. So the list goes on and on. So I would say the challenge for ecosystem development now is really to scope it, and then we have lots of tools within the ecosystem range of strategy tools that you can use to map out that system. So whatever group you have in the room, that is always my go-to point, mapping the ecosystem, and from there say, okay, what's the specific challenge? And for instance, for the pan-European healthcare program, there was one ecosystem that was really entrepreneurial, so we used the mapping and used the entrepreneurial side of the ecosystem, versus another that was much more lined up with the universities and with the hospital centers in there. But equally so, we could use the same canvas, and then the interesting stuff happens, because then we have an ecosystem from Portugal based on entrepreneurial stakeholders versus an innovation ecosystem based on the university and the hospital, both related to healthcare or health tech. And then bringing that together in Gdansk last October and comparing those, the same visuals, but with a different ecosystem, then you really get a higher level of understanding. So that was really one of my highlights of last year using the strategy tools. Yeah.
Sure. If I may, I want to give now my experience on corporate. We have heard from Rick, Nir, and Victor on the three other domains: cluster, fund, and startups. On the corporate side, I think the most important example that I can give is the work that I've done with a bank. This is a mid-sized bank. They are probably, I think, ranked third or fourth in Panama. The banking sector in Panama has probably 60 plus banks, so they're pretty big. They reached out to me with one very specific question, and it is, how can we bridge the gap between where our strategy is heading and where our innovation is heading? And how can we get everybody aligned and to, for one hand, for innovation to have an impact, so innovation that matters, and on the other hand, for strategy to be strategy as innovation and not strategy as analysis. So this was really the big ask from the CEO of the bank. They have just been through an acquisition of a bank where they acquired it. It's basically doubling their portfolio, but the services were very, very similar. So this is a bank where you had to really come in and talk about core growth and explore horizons. And this is one of the first tools. Whenever you go into the BTC world, so building transformation company, you'll see it's extremely powerful to kind of map for a client what is their primary core business model, where are the growth opportunities, or what are the new business models that they can entertain, explore, given market dynamics, given corporate customer demands, and also given changes in technology. And then finally, what can you do on the exploration side? So what is really something that you could start experimenting with potential startups or with potential non-traditional partners? And that was a game changer for them because at the end of the day, it was almost impossible for them to kind of open up their strategy, think out of the box and say, you know what, yeah, if I'm looking at this at a 5 to 10 year horizon, I have to think about what is coming. The Gartner hype cycle is a great example, right? You kind of almost see how things are going to be evolving, and they never miss. So for them, it was more, should we continue to invest in the way we were heading? Meaning, digital transformation of the existing core business, or should we now start to explore new things? And I was very fortunate enough to be able to apply a lot of the strategy tools, methods, and techniques, and canvases to help them frame the context, create the path for transformation, and guide them through the journey going forward. As a result, they hired an innovation manager. They promoted the strategy officer, and they are now kind of leading the next wave of innovation projects. And they have cut down, I think their portfolio when I started was like 36 innovation projects defined, and now they're down to 6. And this shows that those 6 are the ones they're going to bet on. They are seeing the impact, they understand in which horizon they fall. And therefore, what KPI, what result are they supposed to expect from them? So I just wanted to quickly share that experience because I know that people also want to know about the corporate side of things and how that fits in. But all 4 of us, either way, if it's fund, if it's cluster, if it's startup, if it's corporate, they all come together. There aren't clusters that don't have a corporate arm. Corporates are building investment arms. Corporates want to create the entrepreneurship culture. And I think if you sum it and you bring it all together, as I usually say with strategy tools, you're kind of bridging all the different realms, areas that seems to be very different, but at the end, really are very much so connected. Any comments, guys? Are you recognizing this? I know you haven't probably dealt with corporate, maybe you, Rick, or Nir, as I have, but are you seeing this happening as well? This notion of, hey, I want to be more entrepreneurial, I want to be more innovative, I'm worried, I'm concerned about industry shifts. How do I prepare?
Yeah, so I'll go first, Rick. I think that first of all, depend on the standing point. I'm going to first talk about us as an advisors, understanding the way open innovation works, frameworks, the build, buy, partner, co-invest, co-develop, and you understand that the co-invest is a really part where startups coming in, and then you understand the link between corporates and startups. Once you get it and you see it in your mind, in your head, it's much easier to approach both sides, startups and how they should act, and corporates and how they should act. And I never dealt with corporate strategy in the past. Like my 18 years were more over marketing and digital and transformation, etc. So, but now it seems much more structured. And yeah, I think that once you understand the ecosystem from both sides, and I mentioned it before, even with startups and VCs, also same logic of understanding both sides, and make things I wouldn't say much easier, but easier in a way.
True. Rick.
The desire of corporations to try to innovate with things outside of their own R&D labs and their own internal development has been there for quite some time, and the urgency of trying to reach out is largely dependent on sort of the disruptability of individual industries. Nobody likes insurance. And so everybody's trying to figure out ways to minimize insurance overall. We are, as customers, insurance companies realize that they're reaching out to startups to try to figure out what the future looks like, and in some cases cooperate and even purchase individual startups. Fintech is another one that's also under a lot of crisis. Mobility certainly is the one that's under crisis. And so all of these, and Chris and Strategy Tools does a good job at highlighting these various industries overall and providing tools so that they can, these industries can start to first off frame, like you said, Glenn, what it is they need in terms of core, growth, and explore, and then where maybe startups or other entities can go ahead and assist them. They start scouting, they start cooperating, they build internal accelerators. There's a whole host of tools that one can use and put to bear. It's an exciting area. It's super fun. It's very creative. It's case by case. You're dealing with, management, a lot of times personalities where people whose careers have been built on internal capabilities, or they internally are being disrupted. So you're dealing with politics as well. It's fun. It's very creative. It's sometimes frustrating, but Strategy Tools, through the frameworks that we have, the canvases, the way that you're able to put things down in a structured black and white way really helps achieve clarity of thought. And if you learn the tools and are able to apply the right tools at the right time, it's magic. So that's what Strategy Tools really brings. And so learn the tools, and there are new ones being created all the time too. So stay on top of things.
Yeah. No, I wanna add.
You touch base now an important issue here. The rate of new tools that comes in from the mastermind is yeah.
Yes.
It's
no, I think
where's Jolene and Adelina complaining about that?
Exactly.
You have to develop your own recipes and make your own cookbook, so to speak. So make a choice of your favorite ones and then run with that, because sometimes, we know how to keep up with the output is sometimes difficult. But if you
yeah, you're right. I mean, it's like a custom build with your own tools, to your toolkit that you take to work every day, and it's not full of everything that's out there from a hardware store. It is your specific toolkit you take with you.
Yeah. I'm gonna go a little bit off script now because I sent you guys some questions beforehand. I always like to do this. So we have talked about the projects that we have done. Now, obviously, before we get to doing a project, we have to sell it. Let's talk about business development, the sales process. As an advisor, again, the first thing you have to do is build trust, build relationship. Again, let's start with you, Victor. How do you sell and how do you position? How do you do the business development on strategy tools and using strategy tools as an example?
You were asking me? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
The phone. Yeah. Okay. I'm in a little awkward position as opposed to Rick and Nir, because for me, some of the projects also come from national governments or national programs that have a specific economic development policy behind it. Nevertheless, there are opportunities that we can jump on as a network organization and see, okay, this is really important for us from our partner perspective. So let's take the example of the high-tech NL network that is based out of 110 semiconductor companies and suppliers of machines, etc., etc. And we come up within the team with something that they can use. I'm sorry, there's somebody.
Yeah, somebody can you please mute?
Please.
Thank you.
Okay. So we try to figure out what it is that some of the partners can do. Can you mute that microphone, please?
I'm trying to.
I have muted everyone but you guys. So
okay, thank you.
Cool, thanks. So we try to figure out what is of importance for our specific partners. So in this case, for instance, we started something around chip design and systems engineering because we heard from a number of talks, and then we need to find the right procurement and the right funding for that specific topic, which is there, but then it's related to the national economic development policy for the high-tech industry. So it's a little different sales cycle, but still I try to use as much as possible the concept of using a visual tool set to align everybody around the same area. That most of the times, like you said, Glenn, you like to work with the growth explore and model of core growth and explore. For me, it's most of the time the mapping of the ecosystem. When I say to the partners, okay, you need to know that you're coming from these different backgrounds. How do you align your win-win situation that you can all benefit from this economic development? That's more or less the stuff that I use.
Thank you. Nir, how do you leverage?
Yeah, so I must say that I'm doing it the hard way, meaning not compared to anyone, huh? It's just my own hard way. And that's again, I cannot say that the startups were my 18 years of background, kind of networks, etc. So I had to reach out to them, and the way I did it was more of connecting to networks in Israel. Accelerators, spending time in mentorship and free, pro bono, call it, mentorship. Again, lots of content, lots of reach outs, and slowly it became a thing, meaning I became a little bit non-phase during, conferences. Engagement brings other engagements, meaning you create value, you bring value to founders and they are connected, and they talk, and they are in the WeWork space, co-working space, or whatever they are, and they talk. And all of a sudden you get some follow-up calls or peers that comes in and ask, and etc. And that happened, I would say, 3 years of work until you see some things coming in.
Oh.
So just to give everyone the
heads
sense
up.
of how to work on that manner. Again, content creation is a thing. It takes time, takes energy. Go ahead, Victor.
Before we go to Rick, can I because it just triggered something. The session that we recently had a couple of weeks ago with Scott on how to use LinkedIn, for instance, that also brought a lot of sharing of knowledge and possibilities of going out there. And just like you said, Nir, creating content of what are you doing, what did you read, what did you find out, what came to mind, etc. Just write a small post on LinkedIn. Tag a number of people that you feel that they also need to respond it, or like we also said, if you post something, let people know that you're going to post, so they can post a reaction or a question or whatever, and then you generate this content and vibe on something else. And I must say that some of the posts now I get more response to, and people actually are connecting. And then if I ask, why do you connect? And they say, okay, I read your post. I want to know something about how you see this and this and this. This is creating opportunity. So, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Rick,
no, that's a very, very good point. I mean, in your case, Rick, you have a extremely, I think, a very powerful brand as a individual, as a strategic advisor. Just by itself. So for you, it's much easier. I mean, you come in and they should roll out the red carpet.
Oh, yeah, it's just like that.
Yeah, it's raining.
Of course.
I mean, just my situation is a little different, but so I'm an introvert. I do not like to reach out. I do not like to self-promote. I just don't. It's against my nature. So you don't see a lot of things from me. I'm not on the Telegram channel, blah, chatting it up and all that kind of stuff. But I do have a good network that I've developed over time. I deal with about 20 clients average per year. So 20 individual clients, and that changes. About 2/3 of those roll over year by year. About 1/3 of them are brand new every time. That's consistent over the last decade, 20. There are times when I do a lot of work, like with China. I was doing a ton of work in 2015, 16, and then, the new administration got elected, that went to zero. Then I have to basically, I call it dialing for dollars. So I reach out to people on a casual basis. Hey, I haven't heard from you for a while. Hey, let's go do lunch, and just start the networking a little bit. And that for me, it may not result in immediate business, but things start to pick up over time. And I make my numbers. Ukraine, February 24th. That was 2/3 of my business. I was running the 2 largest accelerators in Ukraine. I still work there, do a lot of work for them, but it's all now pro bono. And so on. So again, I had to go dial for dollars and get that going, but sure enough, it comes back. So it's really the power of everybody that good friends. A lot of you are in the room here today. And so I know if there were times we just really connect and share thoughts and see what's going on, and who knows what comes out of it. So it's definitely casual networking on my side that works for me.
Yeah. I think
Can I add one thing just before we wrap up this point? And it's a tip. At the end, think about strategy tools as a visual entity, I would say. Lots of visual stuff. And the simple way for me, to post content that is unique content is really just show something that you realized through one of the visual tools or one of the visual combination of tools or insight. This is, and it goes through, social media is visual. So the combination between the visuality things on both sides create something that you can't find anywhere else. So if you understand it well enough, you utilize it on a client, or maybe blur the client name, but just emphasize the insight that you got out of it, of using the tool, and you have like 200 plus, I don't know how many tools to use. So it can be like ongoing content creation.
Yeah. No, I if I may add, just to finalize this part of business development, what I'm using now very often is instead of sending a proposal, I literally co-create the proposal with the client. And again, the canvases are extremely powerful. I use Miro as an example. I think most of us practitioners use Miro, our virtual visual board. And we literally take the client throughout a journey of how an engagement would look like. So where do we start, what we do next, and how we continue to build the story. I think that has been, on one end, very powerful, because now you're making a true tailor-made adjusted proposal focus on the customer need. And second, the client almost get a free run, right, of what the experience is going to be look like before you actually send them the proposal. So the proposal is really a document to kind of formalize things. We have some questions from the audience, and one of them are, I think, Frank, you asked me about when I mentioned the word giving back. What do I mean with that? Well, that's actually pro bono work. It's work that we have to do as practitioners to continue to build your brand, but also more importantly, to practice the different things that you want to master. So for instance, one example, I've used the Scale Up Canvas and the Long-Term Funding Map. These are two very powerful canvases for startups with multiple founders, and just take them through the process of showing them, what are the things that they don't know. I think one of the very powerful things of a framework or a canvas is to show people what they don't know and what they need to know. And it's kind of these probing questions that makes you, as an advisor, very, very valuable for them. Nir, there's a question for you around some of the examples of companies that you've worked with as an advisor or as a coach, and what do you actually do with them?
Yeah, so in the Miro that I shared, there are 5 of these. I work with more, but one-on-one engagement, ongoing one, really, it's a lengthy thing, this fundraising process. Some very, and by the way, really, don't get me wrong. Again, 80-90% of the people, the founders that I meet, are really good. They are experts in their domain. They are smart people. They cracked a need, they understand the need, and they really try to solve a solution. But from that point, they need help. And it's not an instant help, it's an ongoing thing. So yeah, again, in the link, you can see a few of them. As part of the batch, so for example, Catapult is it's a 16 startups batch, which I'm in a way connected, whether it's on LinkedIn, future questions that they keep asking afterwards. And I think it's the 2nd or 3rd batch that I'm engaged in the last 1.5 years. So yeah, lots of startups.
Good. We're running at the end of the session, so I would like everybody to give some parting, short advice to whoever is starting their journey or is already in this journey of becoming a strategic advisor. Let's start with you, Victor. Then we go to Nir. We finish with Rick.
Trying to keep it short. What Peter Fisk also said: the change that is coming for the next 10 years. The range of complexity and the emphasis on systems. I really, really feel that ecosystems is just not cutting it. So it's moving towards systems. And once you dive into systems innovation and into systems thinking, a whole new box of Pandora opens up. And that is really complex. I love diving into it, but I also see that we need as strategic advisors to really go one level up and have an even more broad view on stuff that's happening. It doesn't matter where you're, in which industry or in which area you are, you need to hover over on a system level to see what's going on.
Sure. Thank you for that, Nir. Parting advice.
Yeah, so I would say that what I want to see throughout this ecosystem called strategy tools, in regards to maybe investor readiness, etc., is collaborations. I believe in collaboration between countries, between parties, and I think that we can do lots of good stuff. So if you think it makes sense, just reach out. It will be great. LinkedIn, whatever, call, whatever.
Yeah. No, I fully agree with that. The network is extremely generous with their time and their willingness to share. Rick, any parting comments?
Just more of the same. I think Strategy Tools is a really great community. Here we are, most of us are independent consultants or work for small consulting firms, something along those lines, all looking for the next thing, tools for sure, but also opportunities. And here, you're hearing us openly talk about our businesses as consulting practitioners, but know that there are monthly forums. Specifically, I'm going to give an advertisement. Nir and I are always part of Scale Up Coach. Monthly, we talk, and a lot of that, I'd say, a third to half of the content talks about the business, the rates, the outreach, the actual day-to-day work of trying to land new businesses as an individual consultant. And so join us, Scale Up Coach, and all the other forums that Strategy Tools does a really good job in hosting for all of us.
Yep. Just from my end, you need, again, I said it before, you have to stay curious, have a beginner's mind. There's so much happening. There's so much to be done. And I think what you mentioned, Rick, in addition to just the community, the fact that Chris and the entire Strategy Tools also harvests experience from us as a network is extremely important. You have the opportunity to go out and challenge and comment and improve most of these campuses as you see how they work within the business. So there's so much to be done and so much to be gained out of this network. So with that said, I want to thank Rick, Nir, Victor, dear friends. I'm extremely honored to be able to host this panel. You guys made my job so easy. You made my job so easy. So thank you for that. And let's go back to the other session, okay?
Yeah.